Drive Time on RTE Radio 1, sponsored by Ulster Bank. No matter what business you're in, make our business banking team yours. Ulster Bank Ireland Tech is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
In 1992, as we embarked into another abortion referendum campaign, RTE's Nighthawks ran this sketch recalling the previous abortion referendum.
Tonight, on Today Tonight, we return to the 1983 abortion amendment debate. Thank you. The abortion debate there. Brian?
There's little doubt in the lasting division sown in the 83 and 92 campaigns, a really strong sense of the entire country splitting into two camps.
There are incredible instances we heard of during the campaign, people being asked in the confession box which way they were going to vote. And this seems to me the most extraordinary instance of pressurisation.
Is there another way for us to talk during this campaign, or will the country necessarily divide into them and us again? Is there a way to talk that takes account of the feelings of the at least 170,000 women who have travelled for abortions, or the unknown number who made a different choice when faced with their crisis pregnancy? While I was looking for help on these questions, I came across a TED talk given by a woman called Aspen Baker.
I had graduated from college just a few months earlier, and I was in a new relationship when I found out that I was pregnant. When I thought about my choices, I honestly did not know how to decide.
Her experience was that, faced with her own crisis pregnancy in the United States, that there was an almost complete absence of talk in the public sphere about abortion or adoption that wasn't polarised. Every story served either one agenda or another.
But for the last few decades, the dialogue around abortion in the United States has left little room for anything beyond pro-life and pro-choice. It's political and polarizing. But as much as abortion is hotly debated, it's still rare for us, whether as fellow women or even just as fellow people, to talk with one another about the abortions that we have. There's a gap between what happens in politics and what happens in real life, and in that gap, a battlefield mentality, an are you with us or against us stance takes root.
So she dedicated herself to trying to find a way to move conflict to conversation. She set up a talk line offering judgment-free counselling and emotional support to women who had had abortions, women who hadn't, and their partners. And when people talked about their feelings, it became clear that pro-choice and pro-life labels were pretty useless at encompassing the range of women's experiences.
And we needed a new framework that could hold all the experiences that we were hearing on our talk line. The feminist who regrets her abortion, the Catholic who's grateful for hers, the personal experiences that weren't fitting neatly into one box or the other.
And so the idea of pro-voice was born, a way of mostly listening to and sometimes sharing personal experiences of abortion, of taking the dogma and the ideology out of the conversation. Does it work? Has it changed the culture around how Americans talk about crisis pregnancy? I called Susan Chorley, who's taken over from Aspen Baker, as the new head of the pro-voice movement, which they call Exhale.
So I'm a person who's had an abortion.
As you would expect, almost right from the start, she shared her personal experience.
And I have to say that even when I see a bumper sticker, that says abortion ends a beating heart, it is traumatizing to me.
The problem with politicised campaigns on either side of the issue is that it excludes real people's stories in all their ambiguity and their complexity. The feminist who regrets her abortion, the devout Catholic who doesn't regret hers. And when you lose those voices, you inhibit the possibility of people reaching a more human and less doctrinaire understanding, not to mention the possibility of changing their view.
Every person's experience of abortion is very different from the next person. And so, yes, I think when we're hearing this, polarized debate where the actual experiences of real people are not kept in the center, it feels like we're being talked about in a way like we're not, like we're not human. or that we're being analyzed in a way that, doesn't actually have to do with our experience.
But sharing regret about abortion is a recognised pro-life tactic, say some, or your bias is pro-choice if you're inviting women who have had abortions to talk about them. Susan says that proof they are solidly in the middle ground is that neither camp has too much time for pro-voice.
I think Exhale finds itself as a frequent enemy, more of the pro-choice movement at times than of the pro-life movement. I think the pro-life folks don't necessarily know quite what to do with us. And I think that we're all, honestly, our perspective is that we all need to learn from one another.
So far, so abstract. I asked Susan, could pro-voice help, for example, in reconciling the opposing positions in Ireland of parents with children with Down syndrome? Whether she meant it or not, her answer was textbook pro-voice.
I would speak from my own experience. So I have a 16-year-old son, and when I was pregnant with him, we did, a series of tests, and they wanted to do further testing. And it would mean an amniocentesis test. And I didn't want to do that.
I see what you just did there. You introduced a personal experience rather than setting down some prescriptive do this or do that approach. Is that what pro-voice is ultimately about? Sharing your story and your experience?
Yes. Yeah. How do we talk about our own lives? How do we share from our own vulnerability and our own experience?
The campaign is going to intensify in the coming months. The instinct to slip in with one or other tribe is very human and is going to grow stronger in that time. But it doesn't allow for the fact that each of us has a truth that is subjective and it exists at different points along a spectrum.
Pro-Voice is about the real stories of real people making an impact on the way abortion and so many other politicized and stigmatized issues are understood and discussed, from sexuality and mental health to poverty and incarceration. Far beyond definition as single right or wrong decisions, our experiences can exist on a spectrum. Pro-Voice focuses that conversation on human experience. And it makes support and respect possible for all.